Hey, how you doing?
How you doing, sir? I'm Sebastian Sarasota Police Department. You're on audio and video recording. The reason for the stop, you were observed going 57 and a 40, and you were on your phone texting while you were doing that. That was at Euclid and Fruitville.
You don't need to point at me, officer.
I'm not pointing at you. I'm pointing in the direction where it was.
I'll just call the chief. How's that?
Go right ahead, sir. Can I see your license? Right? Yes, sir, I do. Can I see your license, registration, insurance, please?
You can do this?
Yes, sir. I still have a job to do, sir.
Yeah, okay. What's your name?
Officer Beskin. It's going to be on the citation. Can I see your insurance, registration, and your license, please? 7 years, sir. Can I see your registration, please? You're not going to give me your registration, sir.
You arrest me?
I'm asking you if you're going to produce me with your registration. You don't have it on you? I'm asking you if you have your registration.
You're making career decisions.
Okay, sir.
Why are you doing this?
Sir, because you were speeding and you were texting.
Says what? Where's your video?
All right. Hang tight.
When Officer Beskin informs Mr. Hyde that he was speeding and texting, Mr. Hyde demands to see the video evidence. However, officers are under no obligation to provide evidence to citizens to justify their traffic stops, and Mr. Hyde typically would only be legally entitled to see any video footage that existed if he challenged the citations and the video was to be used as evidence against him. Although Section 318.14 of the Florida statutes requires the government to prove traffic offenses beyond a reasonable doubt in court, this burden can be satisfied without video evidence of any kind. For instance, Section 316.1906 of the Florida statutes allows evidence of the speed of a vehicle measured by any radar speed measuring device to be admitted if it is obtained by an officer who meets certain conditions, such as satisfactory completion of a radar training course and who has made an independent visual determination that the vehicle is operating in excess of the applicable speed limit, and obtained the radar evidence when conditions permit the clear assignment of speed to a single vehicle. Video evidence is also not required for an officer to stop a vehicle for speeding. Because Officer Beskin advised Mr. Hyde of his exact speed, it is likely that she used radar to capture his speed. But even if she had only stopped Mr. Hyde because it looked like he was speeding, it is likely a court would find that she had reasonable suspicion to make the stop.
Call the supervisor. I just spoke to your boss.
Okay.
That's not okay.
You want your paperwork? 14 dispatch, can you have my supervisor respond, please?
Yeah. And then we'll see who goes.
Okay. You don't want your paperwork?
6142,
You don't have a warrant.
Sir, you're going to be
I'm
issued a
not interested in
citation.
Anything you have to say. I'll wait for the supervisor.
You can wait for the supervisor, but I'm going to go through what I need to go through.
No, I'm not interested.
Are you going to be issued a
There's
citation?
the registration.
Well, you've been already issued a citation for that.
For what?
For failing to produce your registration.
Right.
All right. You're going to be
Right
issued a
here.
citation 57 and a 40 for speeding. Your fine is
right here.
$256. Information in the back.
It's
You're
right
going to have
here.
an option to
It's
plead
on the
guilty,
camera.
an option to plead not guilty, and an option to take a safe driver's course. If you qualify for the course, it will reduce your fine.
I'm a law-abiding citizen, and you're being bloody rude to me.
If you decide to go ahead and do the course, just make sure you do a prior to submission of payment, as they do
You think you're winning?
require a certificate of
Do you?
completion. If you sign up for it, you must complete it. Otherwise, they will go ahead and suspend your license.
Why are you lying?
You have 30
Why
days to
are you
reply.
lying?
Your payment options are on the green form.
Here's a question. Why are you lying?
Phone number on the bottom in
When your
case you have any
supervisor
questions. When my supervisor comes, I'll wait for him with you if you like me to. Your citations are over here. You can accept them. I will wait. I will wait, but I will wait in my car. There you go.
Throughout his interaction with Officer Beskin, both before and after she issues him citations, Mr. Hyde makes several comments that imply he will use his influence in the police department to get her fired if she continues with the traffic stop or issues him any citations. While attempting to intimidate a police officer is inarguably unethical, a court could also conclude that Mr. Hyde's actions violated Florida criminal law. Section 838.021 of the Florida statutes defines the crime of corruption by threat against a public servant, which is a felony offense, and states that, quote, "It is unlawful to threaten to harm any public servant with the intention to influence the performance of any act or omission within the official discretion of the public servant, in violation of a public duty, or in performance of a public public duty. Because Section 838.014 of the Florida statutes defines the term harm as meaning, quote, pecuniary or other loss, disadvantage, or injury to the person affected, threatening an officer's job would certainly qualify as a threat of harm, and attempting to influence an officer not to write a citation would likewise fall under the scope of this statute.
You knew exactly what you were doing and you made a mistake.
If that is your feeling, you are more than welcome to fight the citations in court.
I'll fight the citation. I'll
Okay.
fight your employment.
Sarge Frangione is on his way.
Okay.
Speeding 57 and a 40, texting while driving, failure to produce his registration. When I asked, he told me I could look it up.
Okay. You know who he is?
Yes.
Right? Yeah, you got identified him.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Hyde, you talked to Sergeant Frangione by the phone?
I did, yeah.
Okay. He's on his way. That's
How
what
do you
another
give
unit.
someone a certificate, ticket for no registration when they've got their registration?
Well, this one is the expired one, but
Well, that's what making it take 2
Yeah.
seconds.
yeah.
We're going to make sure that she pays the price for being disrespectful.
Mr. Hyde argues that because he eventually provided a copy of his registration certificate to Officer Beskin, he should not have been cited for refusing to present his registration, despite the fact that it was expired. However, even if his registration certificate had not been expired, it is possible that Mr. Hyde could still be cited with a violation of the registration statute. Section 320.0605 of the Florida statute states that, quote, the registration certificate or an official copy thereof shall, at all times while the vehicle is being used or operated on the roads of this state, be in the possession of the operator thereof, or be carried in the vehicle for which issued, and shall be exhibited upon demand of any authorized law enforcement officer. A violation of this statute is a non-criminal traffic infraction, and, although Section 318.18 of the Florida statutes allows the clerk of the court to dismiss a case under this statute if the driver can show proof of having a valid registration at the time of arrest, this is not required. Additionally, Mr. Hyde's initial refusal to provide his registration may have violated Section 316.072 of the Florida statutes, which states that, quote, it is unlawful and a misdemeanor of the second degree for any person willfully to fail or refuse to comply with any lawful order or direction of any law enforcement officer. Mr. Hyde's conduct could also constitute resisting an officer without violence, which Section 843.02 of the Florida statutes defines as resisting, obstructing, or opposing any officer in the lawful execution of any legal duty, without offering or doing violence to the person of the officer. Given this precedent, a court would likely conclude that Officer Beskin would have been within her authority to arrest Mr. Hyde for violating either of these statutes when he repeatedly refused to present his registration certificate.
Let me go talk to her and see.
Well, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
She's got it in her head. I know exactly who she is. Frangione told me exactly who she is. That's fine. 7 years might not turn into 8.
Stay in your car.
I just want to know if you want me to go back to the station.
You can go to the station. Yep, go to the station. Hey, Martin. Yeah, I have to leave it on.
Mr. Hyde eventually took the citations and drove away, after securing a promise that Officer Beskin's body camera footage would be reviewed. On February 22nd, Mr. Hyde issued a public apology for his actions on social media and has since dropped out of the Republican primary. Although the Sarasota PD has not issued a public comment on the incident, a spokesperson indicated that Officer Beskin's actions were not under review. Court records show that Mr. Hyde's speeding and texting while driving citations were paid on February 21st, 2022. But as of the date of this episode, he has not paid the fine for the registration citation. Overall, Officer Beskin gets an A+ for remaining calm and professional throughout the encounter, treating Mr. Hyde with civility and respect despite his hostility, and working to de-escalate the situation in the face of threats to her career. Although Officer Beskin likely would have been within her authority to arrest Mr. Hyde at several points during their exchange, she instead exercised her discretion to try to de-escalate the situation by calling a supervisor and waiting at the scene until he arrived. And she maintained a cordial and professional demeanor while Mr. Hyde insulted her, made comments about her nationality, and threatened to have her fired. Former candidate Hyde gets an F for maintaining a hostile and angry demeanor throughout the encounter, attempting to misuse his political influence to avoid being cited for traffic offenses, and potentially committing multiple crimes during the traffic stop. Much of this interaction's escalation can likely be attributed to Mr. Hyde's ego and his apparent sense of entitlement based on his position in the community and his contributions to the Sarasota PD. In fact, Mr. Hyde admitted as much in an apology letter he wrote in the Sarasota Herald Tribune, stating that, quote, I admit that I did expect the reception that I get from most local cops, which is a positive one, because I have fought, in my aggressive manner, on their behalf on everything from officer pay to internal affairs matters. At the point when I realized that my rather silly statement, "Do you know who I am?" wasn't going to work, I should have shut up and let it go, but I didn't. Unfortunately, instead of restraint and a little humility, it was righteous indignation that ran through my veins. It in no way excuses his attempts to abuse his political sway for personal gain.